worthy. Goblin was on the rise, kind of in parallel with Reynor and in parallel with Clem. Then Reynor kind of just took off and left the other two behind, and then Clem kind of took off, and now it's just Goblin back there.
And now it's just Goblin, and Max Pax overtook him as well. And
yeah, exactly.
It's a sad story. You're right.
It is a little bit of a sad story, but we'll see how it unfolds here. As in the bottom right-hand side, as the blue Protoss player, it is Goblin for Team Rotti.
And of course, that means in the upper left-hand side of the map, our red Zerg player from Clash is Reynor.
I have to say, I talk with Goblin quite a bit from time to time, and I get a feeling that he's such a smart kid. Like, he's incredibly intelligent. His strategy is always really cool. He just doesn't practice that much for me, you know, like compared to, he will say it himself. He's just like, you know, I haven't been playing that much. And a lot of the time that seems to relieve enough pressure that he does well. But I get a feeling that if he put in the amount of hours that Reynor puts in, he would be up there with him.
Yeah, no, I get that feeling from Goblin as well. It's not like he never plays. It's just, it feels like he's not as much of a grinder as a lot of the other guys. And it feels like at points there's like, you know, he gets to that stage where he's really enjoying the game, where he's feeling good, and maybe he does grind it out a little more. But there's also, he's definitely not afraid of taking breaks, of not playing as much, and, you know, taking a bit more of a back seat and letting, you know, almost just letting kind of like time do its thing. I can appreciate that style. I don't know about you, but I always feel like if I play a bit, or if I do anything for a bit and then I leave it for a while and then come back, I feel like that actually improves me. Now, I'm not saying that's the best way to get better, but maybe that's Goblin's approach.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to it, right? Like, whenever you don't play for a while, your mindset can reset, and then everything that you were learning before or in the process of learning before can kind of wiggle its way to your gameplay, right? Whereas when you're really caught in doing the same thing over and over, or just playing over and over, you kind of stop thinking because you have all these mechanized approaches, and yeah, like, you can definitely get a fresh new perspective from taking a break. But I feel like you have to be strategical with the breaks, and I feel like Goblin is the type of player that does benefit from that because he is a creative, and he benefits, for example, from new patches, right? Like, he'll be first to abuse things like Void Rays and stuff like that, and make new strategies and really thrive off of the back of that. But I think he still needs to grind a little bit more. But, you know, we'll see how things work out here for him.
Very interested just to see how Reynor wants to approach this series as well. I think as Goblin already starts at +1 air weapons, we get an idea of what he wants to do. Reynor has not been afraid of mixing it up lately, right? He has been a player to kind of like throw in proxy hatcheries and on Beckett Industries take gold bases and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, that's why I'm almost predicted Goblin a map, because I almost feel as though Reynor is going to make something a bit weirder happen, and I feel like that's the sort of game where Goblin could do very well. Of course, right now, this is pretty much standard from Reynor. Obviously, let's see what he wants to do into the mid-game, as double Stargate already coming in with that +1 air upgrade.
That is the Team Roddy special, that's for sure. And it is pretty nifty. If Goblin can deny information for long enough from this Overlord, and there's only one in position, I think that if he banks up enough Phoenixes, that is a very strong way to just kind of throw the Zerg off and get a huge advantage. So in so long as Reynor is not planning to all-in, which Roachmarin just went down, then I think Goblin can get a really strong advantage if he moves out with like something like 7 or 8 Phoenixes, starts picking off, you know, drones, queens, overlords, and just gets value over time with those.
The all-in is definitely the scary part, right? Because you just have nothing. You have Phoenix that can lift, but they have limited energy as well. So if you get all in, and especially with like a Ling Flood follow-up as well, you know, Ling's reinforcing, then you just don't have any way to deal with those at all. He's not even going to have Wolfgate here because he's upgrading that +1 air weapons. So yeah, you might be able to deal with the Roaches, but Roaches and Lings together, I think that's going to be extremely difficult. So kind of fingers crossed at the moment, Goblin strategy is a bit of a risk.
For sure. At the same time, Reynor is the type of player, like he's so advanced that he will have seen the cybernetics core with an early upgrade, and you probably even against Goblin would have to assume that that's almost for sure going to be Warp Gate. So maybe that will dissuade him from going for something like an all-in, in the sense that you're expecting your opponent to have started their Warp Gate as soon as the cyber core started, which is, you know, pretty early. So yeah, here comes Goblin now with those 7 Phoenixes that we were talking about, and I kind of like it. There's 3 spores now on the way for Reynor. But I think this Phoenixes could do amazing, especially with their +1 against the queens.
Yeah, let's see how they can do. Maybe too many queens just joined up together there to begin with. So there's going to be initial push back, and now we're going to see the Phoenix going elsewhere, and they will grab one drone, but again, for the moment, that's kind of about it, Cats.
That is really rough. I almost wish that he had gone in for the queens, because now the queens are going to start getting more energy as well for those transfuses. And yes, the Phoenixes are also banking up energy, but it's not like they're going to lift 2 queens when they have more energy. So it's a little bit rough. Goblin has found some value. Another Overlord here to be found. Could go for that queen, and he will. Very nice pickoff here.
Yeah, anything you can do to shut down your opponent's anti-air, you want to start chipping away at that and giving yourself the advantage. Reynor just says no, none of this nonsense, puts down the Nidus network, and wants to just get across the map and kill Goblin. If he can get those queens across the map and the Phoenix are forced to fight, Reynor truly believes he can just beat those Phoenix in a straight-up fight. So that's what he's aiming for here. He'll reinforce with roaches as well. Of course, Goblin is on the way to that warp gate now, but I don't even know what you really build to help out with this at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I would say something like a forge and just cannon it up at the front, or just make a billion of those batteries, because he's really gonna falter to the ground, I think, more than anything else, as Goblin is getting ready potentially to take a third. I think that the Phoenixes are likely to win against the queens over time, so Reynor is gonna be on somewhat of a timer. But like you mentioned before, the big problem is gonna be those Zerglings, because you know, Phoenixes are awfully ineffective against them.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. I mean, the problem with Goblin as well, though, is it's not even on a third base yet, right? So even if I like the idea of cannoning up, but what do? Cannon up your natural? And Reynor says, cool, I'll take like 4 or 5 bases while you sit hardcore on 2. I mean, that's kind of going to happen anyway with shield batteries on the way up. On our way to a Twilight Council, you need some kind of tech on those gateway units. Here we go. Phoenix is going to make themselves known, lifts a whole bunch of queens. And I mean, there's no transfusions left over, right? So the Phoenix are going to start getting a bunch of kills.
Yes, indeed. I mean, that's a lot of liftoffs to spend, but he wasn't spending that many on the other side of the map, and this looks amazing, actually, to start from Goblin. Are we going to have an upset in game 1? I mean, it's surely looking like it. These roaches are free pickings, $100 cash each.
Yeah, and they are just dropping from the ground to the sky and back down to the ground, only dead this time around. I mean, the problem with losing the queen count is now you never get control of the Phoenix, right? They are always going to be out of hand. They're always going to outmass your queens. And you can see the spores build, and of course that helps because Phoenix can't do anything about the spore crawlers. Charge on the way. If Goblin gets to a point where he weakens up this ground army of Reynor enough, just a few rounds of Zealots will go a long, long way here. And getting rid of stuff like roaches right now is perfect to set up for that.
Yeah, I gotta say though, I do not like the fact that Goblin is continuing to make Phoenixes for 2 extra rounds or 3 extra rounds since this attack began. I would have much rather seen anything else, maybe even Void Race, just because Phoenixes, they're gonna struggle to defend against Lynx. However, this is a lot of Zealots that you were mentioning. The charge is not yet done, but Goblin feels like he has enough to start moving on forward, and the Roaches and Ravagers are all gonna get picked off by these Phoenixes. They're not gonna care about the 4 Spore Crawlers, and Goblin is gonna clean up comfortably here. He's doing it, Wordy.
I mean, that's just how many Phoenix he has. He doesn't care about the spores, and now he's done enough with the spores to maybe let the Zealots go by. The Roaches are there, and the Zealots are going to back it up. And overall, middle of the map goes down as well, and Reynor's numbers are definitely struggling here as Roaches going to grab a Zealot that's up against those spores still. I mean, it's not over yet. Remember that Goblin is only on 2 bases as well.
Yeah, but charge is finished, and with that, I think that he should be able to claim this terrain, or the Phoenix is going to help. They look to be preoccupied on the other side of the maps. Yeah, so they're gonna get a bunch of overlords. This is gonna be kind of nice, but not gonna quite supply block Reynor just yet.
Yeah, and at the same time, the ground army over here is getting a little bit out of hand, right? The ground army of Goblins just not quite holding on. Now he's got Reynor's supply block, and this is really good for Goblin. I actually love the idea of the Phoenix going across the map, because as long as you can hold at home, and hey, he's got a bunch of batteries as well, as long as you can hold at home, that damage is just going to make it impossible for Reynor to recover. Hey, he's 97 over 50. He can't even afford enough overlords to build back up in this.
Yeah, you're right. That is an awesome observation, Gordy. Yeah, this feels terrible if you are Reynor, and now Goblin is going in for this cleanup. There is not going to be many reinforcements coming. Drones is the best thing that Reynor can think of to do here, and it kind of makes sense, right? Because it will clear up some supply if he can actually get some spines at this point going, but it's not going to be enough, and with that, Goblin is going to reclaim this terrain. He's going to look for a third surely soon thereafter, and things are looking very good for Team Roddy here. Yes,
they are. Yeah, it's definitely a little bit of a crazy game, right? Like, Reynor almost played into Goblin's plan because he just didn't show up with enough. It's almost like he didn't realize just how many Phoenix there were going to be, which I find crazy because it's Goblin. He likes to build a heck of a lot of them. So, what a weird game we get to start things off. Of course, Goblin still is only on 2 bases, but like I say, how do you ever, as Reynor, recontrol this game? Because now these Phoenix are always going to be out of hand. You just lost a ton of spores you invested into earlier. I mean, obviously at this stage, I think you're just safe to expand as Goblin. There's nothing that Reynor can do about it.
Yeah, I mean, any Phoenix that you click on, 7 kills, 8 kills, like the ones that are brand new, not bruised, obviously, are not going to have any. But if you clicked on a bruised one, they have done amazing and they have full energy, like you said, so they can still just continue to find value here for a very long time. Those Ravagers are a huge liability because they cost twice as much as Roaches. So one Ravager getting picked off, that's the equivalent of picking off a Muta. It's 200 resources full.
Yeah, no, it's really, really expensive. You just see, oh my god, I mean, 8 drones going down, more Overlords. I don't even want to know how many Overlords died this game. The Queens, like I said, how do you ever fight back against the Phoenix? Because this is going to happen every single time. Reynor, you can see it on the camera. He can't quite believe that it's gotten out of hand. And, this is what I kind of thought when we went into the series, that maybe Reynor does something. I don't want to say necessarily weird, because I think a Nidus attack, it's like a Phoenix style, is good, but his PvZ to me has looked a little shakier lately. It's not been dominant and unbeatable. And Goblin seems to have definitely found a way in this first game. It's not over yet, but of course we really are on the track to it being done and dusted.
Yeah, at the same time, Wardy, I have to say this Phoenix style for me is one of the strongest cheeses that has ever existed in PvC. Personally, when I was a Zerg player, and you see, your heart sinks when you see those Phoenixes move out, and you're like, and you didn't know, like you didn't scout them. The game already feels like it's gonna be so far out of your control because you're now reacting to a threat that is looking to gain value over time. And if you weren't already all-inning it, you're on the defensive. You're having to make those spores. You're having to take damage. You're having to try to take care of your queens, right? It's a very difficult game to play, and it's easy for the Protoss to also contain the Zerg somewhat in a lesser number of bases, because every other base that you take past the first 3 is a base that you have to over-defend with spores or have your queens even more spread. It's just a difficult situation.
So do you think that forced Reynor's hand into that Nidus? Because I feel like he defended well initially, right? But then, yeah, obviously the follow-up that he chose, maybe desperation and not having enough preparation to continue into macro game.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, his defense did look good at the start. He did have all of his queens together to push the Phoenixes twice. So maybe he could have just played a macro game, to be honest. I'm not sure. Like, he definitely took less damage than just about anyone would without seeing it coming. But yeah, I think he felt forced into the Nidus to try and punish. But I'm not sure that was the right call.
No, I'm with you. It just felt as though it never went anywhere, because there was ages where he didn't even have a ground army Goblin, and then Reynor was just kind of sat there not making a move. And maybe because he was just afraid of how many Phoenix there were, which if you're Nidusing into it is obviously not meant to be the case. Another Queen goes down, Overlord, more of these drones. Of course, at this point, it feels like there's just infinite energy, infinite lifts available on these Phoenix, because there are just so many of them regaining energy all the time. Reynor's going to attempt to go up to his 4th base. Of course, at this stage, we've got Goblin, who's been sat on the 3 base for a good little while himself. Both players on fairly low economies. Reynor has been teching up. A lot of his money going into Infestors, Vipers. He's even getting Neural Parasite Cats, but Goblin teching up himself, moving into that Storm upgrade, surely is going to give him the answer to kind of what he just needs to support these Phoenix.
Yeah, I think that Reynor's maybe betting on a carrier transition here and thinking, okay, with Infestors, Parasitic Bomb, we can get rid of those Phoenixes. With Neural Parasite, and can get rid of the transition into carriers if there is such a transition. But that's kind of a little bit of a gamble from his own side of things, that there is going to be carriers. And we know on the other side that while there is a fleet beacon, no carriers have been started. And Goblin is working off of 5 gateways. So I feel like if Goblin adds more gateways, then he's just going to be lethal.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it's getting to that point where you've got to look at what really is out here from Reynor. And the thing is, at the end of the day, like these Infestors, etc., they are good in certain scenarios, but they really don't carry this army. I mean, do you see carriers coming up? So maybe Reynor will get to play that later game, and that's scary.
Yeah.
Because Reynor is so good at that later game, right? He is one of the best along there with Serral, so it really is terrifying as Goblin. Like, you've had such a great game, but now you're going into the stage of the game where a lot of the time Reynor really doesn't mind being. So, yeah, definitely a little scary. I love that these Phoenix are still getting so much done, though.
Yeah, they have to be careful about those infestors though, because if they get reset, all of a sudden Reynor's gonna be in a decent position. I don't know how he has managed to keep up. I mean, if we look at the resources lost tab, there's a 7,000 difference or something. So the fact that we are 7,000 difference 15 minutes in and Reynor still looks like he's in this game, he's just that good, I guess.
Yeah. I think a lot of it might just come down to the fact Goblin really was just defending on 2 bases for all that time. He really did take him a long time to get to 3 bases, right? And now he's going to go up to 4, and that's also very late, of course. So there is maybe something about that, as we do just see these Phoenix coming in. Oh, the Fungal lands on just 2 of the Phoenix. Now a Parasitic Bomb. Now you're going to have to split away. He's going to recall out of there. Well, that's not going to really solve your problems. Oh, no. Recall was not the answer, man.
It was not the answer. It was a cute recall. I mean, if he had a little bit more HP to play with there, maybe 3 or 4 more of those Phoenixes survive. But yeah, he could have just ran away. I mean, he wasn't fungled, so he could have just gone to the corner.
It's almost like he thought he was about to get the rest of the Phoenix fungled, or like in the split moment, he was like, Parasitic Bomb, that's a fungal, right? He's like, my only way out is a, is like a recall. So maybe something crazy like that. Anyways, it's what's done is done, and the Phoenix threat is finally dealt with. Of course, it's a very different army that Goblin has now, which is going to be with the carriers, but a good supporting ground force as well. What I'm worried about now is, I guess, the fact that actually a lot of what Reynor has is very tech-heavy. Yes, it's a Roach Ravager core, but there's a heck of a lot of infestors in play, and there's a good few Vipers to play with as well.
Yeah, those Phoenixes are still going to be potentially effective in picking off infestors that have used the Neuroparasite, but it's a lot to ask for from Goblin as well. This is a lot of things to click on. And as much as people like to meme about Protoss being the A-movie race, it is not, especially when it gets to this complex army compositions, like when you're not talking about like Celor Archon, which is pretty A-moving basically. When you have a lot of spellcasters and different depth to your army, some of it flies, some of it doesn't, you don't want to clump it. There's a lot to do in this fight, so we'll see how Goblin manages.
Yeah, let's see. He's moving up to make I mean, I don't mind this, right? You max out and you're pretty much just going already. I think that's definitely the way to approach it against Reynor. You don't want to give him time. You don't want to let him set up any more than you need to. And behind this, he'll have carrier production as well, right? So even if he has to go back home, he's fallen back to additional carriers that are already finishing up. Here we go, pushing through a couple of feedbacks. They were well placed, honestly. Only 1 Parasitic Bomb got off. Zealots at the same time on the left side, Cats, and this is a hell of a move out of Goblin. Reynor was not in position at all. Nice fungals on the High Templar, but 1 High Templar kill and nothing more.
Yeah, this was really unfortunate for Reynor, who was moving through the middle of the map, and Goblin barely managing to completely avoid Reynor's vision, but in part due to those Phoenixes clearing all of the Overlords out on the map earlier, and Reynor just not having great creep spread. But here come the Neuroparasites, and it's a lot of them. Storm still available, and Goblin is going to choose to storm over the Infestors to try and get rid of some of those Neuroparasites. Now onto the army, and here come the Phoenixes to try and clean up. But all in all, a decent trade for Reynor, I want to say.
Yeah, it felt like towards the end there really made up for it. As you're going to see the last little bit of Roach Ravager left over. I mean, there's only really Phoenix left in the sky. They're going to make moves on these Infestors, though, so they are getting caught over here. And obviously, any loss is an expensive loss for Reynor because he lost 2 bases, Cat, so he has barely any production available to him. You know, he's lava-starved, he's going to be income-starved. Oh, it was a great effort from Reynor. I just don't know if it's enough at the end as Goblin continues to produce. And I mean, at this point, Reynor just cranking out ground units against what will be storms and carriers and all sorts. Let's see if what Reynor has left over is enough to outnumber Goblin.
Yeah, it's difficult, and you might be wondering, why is Reynor choosing those Ravagers? Goblin has done it, by the way. That was amazing. Difficult to believe. It's a little bit of a start to an upset, which would be great to see. But yeah, Reynor was out of larva, out of economy, out of bases. So amazing. Great job by Goblin. Wow.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. I feel like, you know what it is? I feel like a lot of this was... Goblin almost played a bit different to how he usually does, and especially later on, I feel like Goblin's the guy who will just sit back and build like a ton of carriers, right? And just sit and wait. And Reynor just wasn't expecting him to actually attack. Like, when does Goblin actually attack? Well, not that often. But in this game, he was like, yeah, maxed out, let's go instantly. Didn't even wait for like 2 extra carriers that were building. He was just like, no, we go now. So he hits, Reynor's out of position. He's got a Zealot run by on the left side as well. And of course, that's just what he needed to capitalize on what was such a good early game for him. That Phoenix defense against the Nidus, which set him up for the game. But like we were saying, it's so difficult. It's so scary when you're playing Reynor. You've seen it so many times where these top-end Zergs fall behind early, only to claw it back in the late game. And Reynor and Goblin just said, no, not this time. I've got enough of an advantage. And he made it happen, man. It was a sick game.
Definitely. And it was kind of a perfect storm for him, right? It can't be understated. I mean, he moved on the right and on the left, both unscouted, and Reynor was as far out of position as he could possibly be without being attacking Goblin, basically. So yeah, that was, I mean, that was just too good of a situation. I think for Goblin, manages to exploit it to the best of his ability and takes game number 1. Game number 2 is going to be on 2000 Atmospheres, which is also a potentially good map for air transitions and overall just late game.
Yeah, 2000 Atmospheres is probably just better than Lightshade, right? What's good about Lightshade is it is a shorter map. Queen walking on that map, brilliant. This is a map where, as Reynor, if you want to do something like that, it's going to be that much tougher in the first place. Maybe this is a map better suited to Nidus overall, but do you Nidus after what just happened in game number 1? Probably not. So it almost feels like Goblin really with a good upper hand now, because this map kind of plays into what he likes to do usually. So we'll find out what Reynor's approach to that is going to be as we're going to hop on into this game and see, of course, whether Reynor can, well, tie this series up.
We will have to wait and see as we are loaded in. And the bottom left-hand side for Clash, it is the world champion, Reynor.
All right, in the upper right-hand side, the blue Protoss player from Team Roddy, it is Goblin.
Living up to the team logo there in the previous game.
Yeah, he did. It was the team logo to the max, times 20, 30 or so.
Yeah, that was incredible. Really, really well done by him, but it's so scary to see that Reynor was almost stabilizing in spite of taking so much damage initially, in spite of his Nidus completely failing. And yeah, like you said, I mean, Goblin was contained on 2 bases for a very long time, but it's still scary. I mean, it's not like he could have taken a third, right? So yeah, it's a difficult position for Goblin mentally, I think. We'll see if he can make it happen. I mean, a 2-0 would be insane.
A 2-0 would really be insane. I mean, that would go against all expectations, right? So that would be absolutely out of this world. And at that point, I'd be shocked. You know, I feel like Reynor, like I said beforehand, I feel like his PvZ isn't maybe the super stable kind of ZVP we've seen from him as of late, but it's still meant to be good enough to win these series. To get 2-0, that would be, to me, Reynor having just a bad day. And Goblin playing great.
Someone would be really happy out there, as I did check the odds, and for 2-0 Goblin, it was something like 14-1. So,
mate, I'm already really happy. I bet 1k channel points on Goblin's first map win. I got 16,000 back. I'm rolling it over here, mate.
Wow, that's actually absurd. 16,000 channel points.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, pretty good odds in the Twitch chat for Goblin.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to all the Twitch chats donating the points. Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Yes, indeed.
It's fun, you know, because I don't get to bet on my own stream with channel points, right? So it's like, you know, finally I get to be part of the, you know, finally I get to join in with everybody.
That is very true, yeah. Show dominance. How many channel points do you have total now?
On ESL? Or like 150k.
Yeah. Very nice. Wow. Very impressive.
That's what you get when you sit here and watch the DreamHack SC2 Masters. They rack up over time.
That's true. All right. So we have Stargate once again, and it's going to be on Reynor's face. So Reynor well aware that there is a Stargate, and here is where Goblin gets to potentially play some mind games. Maybe opens with a single Phoenix this time into something like a mass charge lot attack or something like that. That'd be cool.
Yeah, obviously the biggest difference we can see is he goes Warp Gate this time, right? And last game he went past the Warp Gate into +1 air weapons. But from Reynor's point of view, like you say, it looks very similar, and that's kind of where the mind game comes into it. That's where it's a little tougher for Reynor to really identify exactly what is going on here. So, yeah, definitely worth pointing out, as is just going to be a Void Ray to start us off. So a Void Ray to begin. Do you think we see a massive Void Race here, Cass? Do you think that's the route Goblin takes, or do you think he switches it up as we go on and maybe goes into Glaives and that ground army, which we've been seeing a bit more of as of late?
We'll have to wait and see. I mean, there is an Adept in production, so I'm curious to see if there's going to be a second one. I think that one Void Ray is fine just to clear Overlords, but I personally preferred making like 5 Void Rays, one at a time, into Robo, into Disruptors for a defense of because usually you get the counter attack with something like queens or with something like hydras, and that's, you know, that has to be more or less the response on the Zerg side of things for Void Rays. So so that is an option, but it looks like he's gonna go for the Oracle and into the Twilight Council. So
yeah, Twilight Council, so that's obviously mostly going to be suggestive of seeing Resonating Glaives here. That's pretty much the go-to that you have in this situation, so imagining that's what we get, but let's wait and see just to confirm, as I guess what other options really are there. Even if you don't want to play like Adepts are just this really good tool to put pressure on the map, harass a little bit, and just give you a good amount of time to build into then that ground army.
a very interesting choice here from the side of Reynor, as he is getting +1 melee. +1 melee is kind of the hard counter to Phoenix, because Lynx are extremely good against Phoenix, like we were pointing out in the previous game. So if Goblin was doing something similar to what he was doing last game, not really picking off any... Okay, 2 drones go down to that Oracle, so that's nice. But yeah, if Goblin... Whoa, oh, be careful! But if he was doing what he was doing last game, then the +1 Lynx would be amazing on the side of Reynor. But because he's not, and he's actually going charge, this could work out pretty well for Goblin.
Yeah, it's a heck of a lot of gateways being added on right now. There were just 8 gates in production a few moments ago. And obviously those numbers will be rising up. So it's going to be a lot of charge lots, really looking to put everything on this attack. He's pulled completely out of gas. This is the mind game, right? All of a sudden, all of these Zealots. But Reynor's preparation, I mean, he's got a Baneling Nest. That will be massive against the Zealots, of course. But he's also now building a Roach Warren. What do you actually commit to here? You know, Banelings are very good at kind of, you know, instantly busting down a group of Zealots, but are they good long-term? Not really. Roaches are a little better at sustaining damage output against those Zealots. So let's see what exactly Reynor chooses to do. He is going to go Roaches.
Yeah, I mean, if he's gonna have the Baneling Nest, I would like the mix for that first wave of Zealots, right? They're gonna be clumped up, and there you go. He's gonna do a mix. So I really love this, because it's exactly as you said. It is, and it's something that most Zerg players will not recognize, right? That the Banelings are only strong against the clumped up burst of Zealots that we're seeing right now. This is oh, look at that beautiful initial hit. So, and now he gets to clean up with this Roach Ling very comfortably. Here is gonna be Reynor.
Yeah, I mean, this is just Reynor through and through, complete and utter shutdown. I love the transfusions on the Banelings, so that Goblin thinks they can kill them off, and it's like, no, you don't. I am keeping these alive because I want them to roll into your Zealots or waddle into your Zealots. And that was just perfect preparation from Reynor. There was nothing catching him off guard there. He was seemingly somewhat well aware of what was going on, and he was just perfectly set up. So, well said. And now we're going to be going into game number 3 after a quick little commercial.
Welcome back once again to DreamHack Masters Summer. My name is Katz, I am joined by Wardy, and we are about to watch the final game, game number 3, between Goblin and Reynor. And it is surprising that we are here even.
Yeah, I know you guys say surprise, and I had it nailed down, right? Reynor's gonna take this third map. Gonna look perfect on I had to recover my predictions off last week, man. My day one predictions were so in the gutter, I don't even think anyone noticed I made any at this point. This map, by the way, for map 3, Jack and Nather, it's one of these, like, I feel like this was the old school kind of like, oh yeah, this is like the Void Ray map, the Sky Toss map, but it's also quite a short map, Cats. It's got that mix of easy 4 bases or easier 4 bases, while also being a shorter rush distance. That obviously introduces some kind of weird bits and pieces of how do you get up to those 4 bases, because in a meta where Queen Walks are very popular, maybe that causes some trouble for Goblin here.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially if he is willing to take that forward triangle base early on. That is where Reynor likes to walk his queens, and it is kind of a wide open space. But I think that the 4 bases on the very back are particularly good for Stargate play. I really like walling off the 4th in the corner. I think that can be done, and that can be a good way to do it. But we are loaded in, and we'll see what the players actually have in store for us. As in the bottom left-hand side, playing for Team Roddy, it is Goblin.
And in the top right, try and stop the upset is our Red Zerg player from Clash. It is Reynor.
And interestingly, while Goblin didn't go for something like Phoenix into charge slot, I mean, he went Void Ray into charge slot, right? We're just about the same idea, trying to surprise Reynor, but Reynor was just unfazed, unsurprised. Yeah. He was just completely ready.
It was an absolutely perfect setup from Reynor. Like, he couldn't have been more well prepared, to the point where, you know, Goblin's attack looked stupid, right? It felt like he didn't even have units because they were just dead so quickly. So there's always a sign of just how well prepared the Zerg was. Reynor not only seemed to know what was coming, but he prepared for it in the exact way he needed to. And it does, you know, I like throwing this build in his Goblin because it keeps Reynor on his toes, of course, in a game 3, and it's something he's got to keep on his mind in this game 3 as well. You can't just go all out greed if you see a Void Ray here and be like, right, you know, this time I'm going to set up against the Sky Toss. No, he could throw something like that at you a second time around, or he could drop down a Forge and go for a delayed cannon rush onto his natural.
Love it. All right, let's see what he can do here. He needs 2 more pylons to completely block that. That one is good because it's going to delay the drone a little bit further, and he has actually done it as far as getting himself this location. Reynor's going to attack this pylon with 4 drones. I think he might be able to fit a 5th if he scoots over to the left on one of those drones, but he's not even going to try. And Goblin, look at that masterful cannon rushing skills, will get out of that position as well. Shift himself out of there with the probe.
I like this as well, this cannon just outside, because it takes the attention of a few drones away, right? And it's a few minerals just to buy you a little bit more time. Drones not hitting that other pylon, which is going to be powering, etc. And that one cannon is going to get up here. Now, Ling's on the way. It's very possible this cannon still gets taken down at some stage. Oh, the probe gets caught. That's obviously not great. And now with Lings coming through, I mean, you should be able to clean this up without too many losses. Here go the Lings. He is going to go clean this up pretty much straight away. Only downside is obviously having to run around the back to get the folks around.
Focus the drone. Nice. All in all, I mean, this was kind of a successful attempt from Goblin. He does lose a pylon, a cannon, and did make a forge. But he is actually still 2 workers ahead at the moment, and he forced out a few links early. A lot of mining time lost on the side of Reynor. So I wouldn't say it's a complete failure.
Yeah, I think the mining time loss is obviously a huge deal. I mean, he pulled a lot of drones against this for a long time. The problem I have is, of course, now Goblin's own expansion is just so delayed from where it should be. Obviously, at least the Cyber Core is done, so you can start up that Warp Gate. I mean, look how much gas he has. He's going to drop a Stargate here instantly. It just feels like his own economy will be that delayed that it doesn't really matter that Reynor pulled those drones defensively.
Yeah, that is a very good point. I feel like that Nexus might have been able to go up faster at the expense of some of his gas, but he really wanted the tech instead. So we'll see what he's able to do with that, as this Zealot is going to try to prevent this Cybercore from going down. 2 links, 2 threaten on the side of Reynor there. Very well done. Okay, and the Stalker will get out.
Yeah, with the Stalker, obviously those Lings won't do too much more. I do like the additional pylon on that right side, just in case. And yeah, on top of this, we're going to start going into that +1 air weapon upgrade. So no Warp Gate here. We're going to go commit into the Stargate units, Cats. And we get a little bit of a repeat of game number 1, including the production of, well, no, this time it's a Void Ray, not a Phoenix.
Yeah, yet still with the +1 upgrade, I feel like he's going to go back for Phoenix. So he's going to be showing, I think, the Void Ray. And he's going to be telling Reynor, you know what, don't attack me with roaches or whatever. And also, you know, I might be doing something like what I did in the second game. The Void Ray is just to deny information, but it's going to be to deny information, I think, for a second Stargate and Phoenix as the second Stargate goes down.
Yep, yeah, Stargate number 2. So we are going to be hard committing into the Stargate style. Yeah, I like your call. I think the thing is with +1 as well, Void Rays, I kind of just like +1 on Phoenix more in general, right? Like, I feel like I never noticed the difference of +1 on a Void Ray.
Yeah, I mean, Void Rays will shred whatever they're going to shred, and they'll run away from the same things, I feel like, so. Whereas Phoenix, I mean, we saw it last game when Goblin was lifting off all of those queens and still getting kills. That makes a huge difference. And Roddy, I'm sure, knows some math where, you know, probably with 4 Phoenix, you can kill a queen, and without, you need a 5th or something, you know? So
he is going to keep building Void Rays. So to me, then maybe he's going to look for like a faster switch into Warp Carriers with that air upgrade. We'll see how it goes. Of course, at some point, he might still want to switch into Warp Gate here, depending on if he wants ground support, which I imagine at some stage you just need. Without ground support at all, you generally are just in a pretty bad spot with Void Rays. Like, Void Rays do well for a certain amount of time, and it gets to a stage where it's just like, nah, these just don't cut it any longer, you know? So we will see how it goes as we do see a couple units pushed back down that right side.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Goblin actually crossing the map as well with his Void Ray, because he's kind of saying, you know, I'm not going for more Void Rays on this. Like, this is the guy that I'm trying to force air defense from you. But now he goes back into the Phoenixes after making those few Void Rays. This is strange.
It's a bit of everything, isn't it? We'll see if, I mean, let's see how many Phoenix he wants to end up building. Yeah, like I said, at this point, I don't really want to commit to saying anything because it feels like every move is going to be a different twist and turn that I didn't expect to happen. Lane counterattack is going to come down. That third base looks awfully barren of defenses at the moment, Cats. There's just nothing nearby at all. So Ling's going to get us around on this. This is almost a definite cancel. The Voids are off on the left-hand side of the map, so they're nowhere near to help out. And that's going to be Reynor really slowing down Goblin's game plan.
Yeah, and surprisingly, the Void Rays are not even pulling back, so he will need to recall if Reynor commits to go for that front wall off that Goblin has. And in the meanwhile, we'll see if this Void Rays can find anything, but it's just 3 of them, which is why the... Okay, and there's only one... There was only 1 Phoenix or no Phoenixes made, and he has gone back into Void Rays. So yeah, I'm on camp worthy now. I'm not saying anything anymore.
You'll just stop talking about what's meant to happen and start talking about what is happening. Fleet Beacon is building, so like I say, maybe a move in towards those faster carriers or something along those lines for this. As we do just have our Overlord scouting through, so obviously Reynor wants to keep up to date with what's going on, get that information. Seeing the Fleet Beacon probably means that as this layer completes, I'd be kind of surprised if he didn't make a Spire. Obviously the Voids are very good initially.
Or Infestation Pit.
That's true. Yeah, Infestation Pit works as well. Okay, see an Infestation Pit here, Caps. All right. Nice call.
Hells yeah. Yeah, so I think that's going to be good for the Void Rays because there's going to be so many of them and they're going to clump up. You don't want to make Corruptors really against mass Void Rays, and Mutas can be good, but they can also be kind of dangerous, especially if your opponent already has the double Stargate going. So, still though, Reynor getting amazing value with these Zerglings. So similarly to the first game, except this time around, Goblin doesn't really have that amount of Phoenixes doing damage. Really, these Void Rays have mostly been idle and not really finding much damage out on the map. So, so I like this game a lot better for Reynor.
Do you still like the Infestation more even with like how fast these carriers are though? Because I feel like, you know, obviously this isn't going to be like such a massive Void Rays that Corruptors would be like instant dying against them all the time. So yeah, I don't know. I just kind of feel like this is one of those situations you actually could drop a Spire and get Void, you know, Corruptors up against Voids. But now we're seeing Tempest production, and once again, I feel like I just don't understand what's actually going on here. Like, what is this in preparation for?
Yeah, this is a strange one. I think maybe he just wants to sit back for as long as possible, establish that third, then the fourth, and really let Reynor attack into him. And yeah, I like what Reynor's doing in the sense that he's transitioning fast into that hive, and he's not even adding pathogen glands, but he will get to infestors kind of as a safety net, right? So that he can have the ability to catch those Void Rays when they go and try to snipe a hatchery, as this 5 might be looking to do here.
Yep, here we go. Moving on in. Getting a couple of drones now. Activating Prismatic. Moves out of Spore range, and there's just nothing here to defend against this. This hatchery is going to go down.
Hells yeah. And all the queens arrive as second late. That's so sad. They're so sad right now.
It's almost like they were the broodling spawning out of the hatchery dying, right? They showed up just as the hatch goes down.
Yeah, poor things. I mean, they could have healed that hatchery right back to full and then zoned off the Void Race. Maybe Reynor can afford an Overlord here and there. Actually, he has a Ling now spotting in that area, so he will not be surprised by the same tactic again. And in the meanwhile, I mean, things are looking a little bit better for Goblin, right? Like now he has a third established. He has this really weird army composition with the Carrier and the Tempests. I'm not sure what the Tempests accomplish here, but I like it.
Yeah, if you had like an Oracle, I'd be like, maybe you tag the army and you're like, oh yeah, maybe I can like pick an Infestor from afar. But without the Oracle even, yeah, I just don't know what the Tempests were even looking to begin to achieve. So back into full-on Carrier production. Now, maybe he just felt like he was going to be under immediate attack and Tempests show up faster than Carriers, but then why not just build more Voids?
Yeah, and now the Void Rates have to be really careful. I'm not sure if Goblin knows about those Infestors being out on the field. So you know, if a good fungal lands, I mean, I guess he could still recall in time unless there's too many queens around. But he definitely has to be a lot more careful with those now.
Indeed, he does. Some feelings going to peel back away. The Voids are looking to escape down the right-hand side of the map. Now, it looks as though Goblin is even taking a venture now towards his fourth base at this stage. So, moving on to base number 4.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Reynor is getting his upgrades. The Carapace and the Melee. People were making fun of me in the chat because of how I say Melee.
I liked how you said Melee.
Thank you.
it was different. I liked it. Hey, these Ultras coming up. So, a lot of people are like, why the heck are you building Ultras against a Sky Army, right? But the Ultras really clean up the ground, and the Ultras are super tanky as well, so they take a lot of shots from Carriers. So it really just takes the attention away from everything else that's then going to put in the work against the air army. So they really do kind of provide a good, a good buffer almost, even though you're kind of looking to buffer against the Sky Army. And again, if there was something like just a few High Temple on the ground with Storm, the Ultras can jump on those and get rid of those really quickly unless there's Immortals/Archons to protect them as well.
Yeah, and I mean, Archons would help, but they're not fantastic against Ultras, and Immortals are just not a unit that syncs up well with your air army. So yeah, I'm completely with you. And Ultras are also the heaviest armor units, whereas for Protoss, Carriers are the lowest damage per shot unit. So they're, Ultras match up really well against Carriers in general, for all the reasons that you were pointing out. And this is a lot of queens.
And if only those Ultras could get like a little trampoline and jump up in the sky and nom down a few interceptors, that would be something. Yeah, that is a lot of queens, Cats. You're not wrong. 25 on the map right now. To me, at what point is there too many queens?
That's a difficult thing to say. I mean, against Void Race, depending on how many they made, there's never too many queens, right? But against Carriers, then the equation changes a little bit. With Ultras, though, I mean, on offense, those queens are all going to be able to keep the Ultras alive.
Yeah.
But I'm worried that, Reynor doesn't really have much space to work with as far as, like, supply is concerned, right? Like, he already is pretty much maxed, and all he really has to deal with the air army efficiently is those Infestors, I would say.
I guess we'll be seeing like Reynor approaching this in 2 fights, right? The first one where he probably trades out a bit and he lets the Queen Transfusers keep those Ultras alive and they cause a bit of chaos. And then the rebuild is going to be into like a whole bunch of maybe Corruptors all at once. You can see those air upgrades coming up to it at a time now. Something to adjust. Maybe if we trade out against enough Void Rays, maybe just on the fly decision based on how the fight goes, he'll be like, right, now I need this. Now I can make the Corruptors, or no, that wasn't quite it. Maybe I make some more of something else to kind of continue on.
Yes, indeed. And I love what Goblin has done. He has identified that there's Ultras and a good amount of Bane and Ling on the ground. Maybe he even took a note of the Queens, but he has not added Storm. He has not added additional Templars. Instead, he's adding more Stargates. And I mean, I got a feeling that the first engagement here will probably go decisively to the side of Goblin. So with that feeling in mind, okay, this is pretty cool from Reynor. This is kind of what he needs to do. Nice splits on the probes from Goblin will prevent too harsh of losses, and this will actually reset the army of Reynor to where he can remax on something a little bit more efficient against what he's seeing here, maybe those Corruptors that you were talking about.
Yeah, and then he just decides to go more Ling Bane Ultra. So he's obviously quite happy with what he's doing. I mean, he does get a decent amount of those drones to begin with, or probes, sorry. So not a bad start. I mean, what he lost was actually pretty cheap. It was mostly just Ling Bane. The Ultras got out of there, etc. So they could have gone out there. So yeah, kind of all right overall. Gonna see a group of Banes rolling in this side, and Goblin just does not see it in time. Oh no, 17 probes go down, and now these Ultras on the right, at least they get caught. But yeah, when the probes go down the left side, it didn't really matter.
Yeah, and as soon as Reynor attacked onto the right, by the way, that's where Goblin started Storm, right? So he was thinking along the same lines of what you were proposing, of there's going to be a 2-layered attack, and he felt like this was where Reynor dumped his army. And so he thought, okay, now there's not going to be... so then he was thinking along the lines of what I was proposing, which is Reynor might remax with something like air rather than ground. But then Reynor goes back for the ground and now for the air with those Corruptors. So the Templars are going to be a little bit more effective than they would have been earlier for sure.
Yeah, those first Corruptors coming up. Going to need more than just 8 to have an impact in this game, though. So this is very much still Reynor probably needing to trade out a few more units somewhere, probably again on the ground, to just make a little bit more space for those Corruptors. Of course, Reynor's bank is starting to really max up here, right? 5,000, 3,000. He's continuing to take base, and it's just one thing that Goblin's really never done in this game. He denied that one hatchery one time with the Void Rays, and other than that, he's not really done anything to hurt Reynor for the longest of times.
Yeah, but one really cool thing that he did was he didn't replace a lot of those probes. So he's working off of 40 workers, and he is maxed with an insanely strong air army composition. So if we look at the army value here, Goblin is well ahead, something like 4,000 gas and 2,000 minerals. So his army is oh, that's cute. His army is absolutely massive. And here's where I think that Goblin really needs to go across the map and make something happen on the side of Reynor. Reynor, of course, is going to be looking for those counter attacks, and that's why there's that threat, I guess, for Goblin, and the reason that he hasn't been moving out. But he has to do something, and he can still win this if he wins the first engagement decisively enough on the side of Reynor.
Yeah, I actually love that Goblin's going to get the chance to fight on Reynor's part of the map, right? Because that means Reynor's going to struggle to get reinforcements together, and in theory, Reynor shouldn't win the first wave of this attack.
Nice Storm.
Wow, beautiful Storm. Really good hold of the front, just slowing down those units from getting in, just protecting a bit of production for a little bit longer, just in case it makes a difference. Reynor not fighting yet, as there are 10 Corruptors in production. I like this from Goblin. Looks like he's going to make a play into the main base, and just maybe avoid some of the more obvious locations that there's likely to be static defense.
Yes, indeed. And he's going to cut off the reinforcements as well from the main base, as well as potentially that Spire, that Hive. Oh, huge Fungals and good Parasitic Bomb to start things off from Reynor. We are expecting that Goblin should be able to clean this off really well. And with that ramp as well, it's going to create a chokehold for those Queens. So Reynor is going to have to abandon his main. This is all very much expected, and it should be expected of the Italian. Amazing Fungal there from Reynor as well.
Additional Fungal, and he knew those voids were low. He knew what he wanted to get with that Fungal, and he absolutely got it. Just not quite able to get the kills. There goes the Spire, and here's where Reynor's in trouble. He's now supply blocked as well, so rebuilding is going to be problematic, and he's still down 40 army supply. Okay, the Void Rays are bruised, but everything else here from Goblin is very healthy, so continuing to move on through. And again, because it's just a Sky Army, he has the potential to work around the spores and avoid the static defense, and that's exactly what he's going to do. He's not going to fight where Reynor wants him to fight.
Yeah, look at this beautiful positioning that he's holding here in between both bases, effectively making it more difficult for the Queens to really get that surface area going. However, Goblin has already dropped something like 20 supply. Reynor still can get maxed out, but he is supply blocked at the moment, so he's struggling to do so. 2 bases have already been taken down, and I like that the progression that Goblin is following here. And I love the comment that you made on how this is only possible because there isn't a ground army supporting, because there isn't Templars. So Goblin really making the best of things. These Void Rays have to be kept alive, however, because if they fall, then the Corruptors will be king.
So many Queens trying to do whatever they can. Can they put up enough of a fight? The Voids are going to activate Prismatic again, so if they get on top of those Corruptors, they're going to melt. Same for the Ultralisks. And it looks as though Goblin's going to keep on clearing our bases. And I think we are going to have the upset.
I mean, Reynor has 3k, 3k, or 4k, 4k now bank, but he just started 26 Zerglings, and now he has 8 larvae. So yeah, exactly, yeah. he had he had like 16 larva, and then he starts only circlings, and that's because he doesn't have a spire, I suppose, or anything. But this is kind of getting a little bit crazy. We might be seeing the upset that you're talking about. I mean, Goblin is still mining off of no bases, actually, so he's not mining. If we look at the income tab, it's actually Reynor ahead. So if Reynor can somehow defeat this army, he's still in this game.
If and somehow, the important words, because what does he really have to do that with, though, right? 13 Corruptors and the Spore Crawler, sure. But of course, Goblin can just, start re-expanding, etc. if he needs to. He can just work around other locations on the map. He doesn't necessarily have to fight straight on into this. And now the Tempests are actually kind of cool. They actually do get to pick away at stuff from afar. And of course, a slow push is a good enough push as far as Goblin is concerned. The only thing I'd say is that Reynor still has bases top left that Goblin hasn't got rid of yet. So maybe he could put some focus on denying those and then coming back into this centralized defensive area of Reynor.
Yes, indeed. And Reynor, if he can muster enough larva, that is now his win condition, is to make enough larva. If he can do that, when the spire is finished, which it is making on the top left-hand side of the map very, very smartly from Reynor, then he will be able to make something like 30 Corruptors. And all of a sudden, he might stand a chance if he has kept most of his static defense alive. Still, with this circlings, he is denying a Goblin from mining any additional bases. So he does have a win condition here, Reynor, still, if he can somehow clear this army. And I love that he's doing exactly everything that he can to give himself a chance at getting those Corruptors out.
And don't forget as well, don't forget as well that Goblin really is like running out of money. So he's not going to be able to rebuild like interceptors or anything at some point soon. So his army definitely is getting to a weaker point. We are selling just still 8 lava though, cats, as the spire is so close to finishing. I mean, 8 more Corruptors, definitely something I would take in this fight. The spire finishes. Goblin is already here trying to fight this though. The first couple of queens going down. 9 Corruptors in production. So we are making our move. Let's see if Reynor can somehow buy enough time to actually make this work. A lot of these voids going down quickly anyway against the lower Corruptor count, because remember, they were so battered from the parasitic bombs and fungal growths earlier. Reynor's supply is now catching up overall. Oh, can he just about hold on? Can the Corruptors do it? The interceptor count's really low.
Yeah, he has to abandon this base and go for that next base defense. Just uproot those spores and put him back at the new base. Maybe start a new lair somehow. I mean, somehow seems to be my favorite word here, because Reynor is having to solve for impossible problems. Like, he's doing the best that he can in doing that. He really needs a spawning pool. Now he's going to drop it at his new base location. I would have almost liked a proxy spawning pool on the creep on Goblin side of the map, because that's the safest spot right now, right? Like, Goblin has no reason to go there. Yeah.
The long distance mining for Goblin is huge, by the way, because it gives him the chance to rebuild interceptors, so it's going to make the carriers useful again. He's got 6 carriers, but at the moment, it's almost like, 6 carriers, actually only 2 or 3 carriers with how many interceptors there are. At least now you'll rebuild a few of those. Only 4 probes left as Reynor goes back to deny that mining once again, so there shouldn't be enough to remax fully on the interceptors. In fact, this is about all we're going to get for Goblin. Still better than nothing compared to what he had before.
Yeah, and this Tempest's worthy. They're doing so much work. It all makes sense now.
That's why you built them 12 minutes ago, cats. Duh.
Quite clearly, yeah. And look, I mean, this is fantastic from Goblin. Here is another lair started, hoping to get to another spire. I would have loved for Reynor to drop a second spire. I would have loved the spire and or the spawning pool to be dropped on the lower end of things on that creep over there. But it's difficult to fault them. I mean, the top left was the next safest spot, and this place, it's difficult to call it safe, but this is enough Corruptors that they can maybe start doing work.
82 army supply each, by the way, just before that Tempest falls on down. Nice catch there for Reynor. As man, it's difficult because you obviously want to jump on this, get a unit, get out, but you're obviously trying to avoid the Tempest shots, storms. It's such a dangerous game. Reynor, like, his time in this game is basically the Spore Crawlers. That's what's taken Goblin's attention away from his actual army.
And that is why these players are so brilliant, because Reynor is looking after the Tempest pickoffs. He's gotten 2 of them already. We're down to 2. If he gets rid of those, then all of a sudden his spores are going to be super effective. And I absolutely love that Goblin brought his 1 Templar. This Templar is a huge hero this game, by the way. He held on his natural base from that Ultra Link Baneling earlier all by himself. He has 13 kills on the back of that. And now recognizing that Goblin is in a position where he's sieging from a ground-based location, he brings the Templar as well to zone off potentially with those storms if Reynor wanted to jump on top of the army of Goblin. This is a crazy, beautiful game of StarCraft.
Goblin is long distance mining with 4 probes again, and it's allowing him to get just a few more interceptors back in play. And it seems crazy, but that's the sort of situation we're in, where little things like that might actually make the difference. That storm was massive, but it is another Tempest. I mean, the Tempest died is permanent damage. It looks as though we're going to jump on this. The Ling and Ultra Force will just try and be a distraction more than anything else. Oh no, the Mothership doesn't go down. It survives. The Corruptors get back to a little bit more safety. Going to go picking off these Interceptors from afar. Void Ray goes down as well. It's complete and utter chaos. The Interceptor count is still trying to hold on here. The Corruptors are going to come in again on low HP. Biles are connecting Cat. The Corruptors are fighting the Interceptors.
Has he?
I don't know who's done it. What? I think
someone did it.
Goblin done it. I think Goblin's done it.
Goblin's done it. Oh my god.
I think. No, but can he fight the spores? With the one Tempest he can.
I mean, the Spire finishes. So with that, it's not yet done. There's a Spire now. Yeah, there's a Spire. Goblin had spotted it too, and there's enough larva for Reynor, but now he's depleted his bank. So these few Corruptors are all we're gonna have to work with. It's 7 Corruptors or something like that. 8 Corruptors against 3 Carriers and a Tempest. I'm not sure that there is enough Interceptors to go off of this Phoenix. It's actually worth its weight in gold at this point, even if just as a human shield.
Oh man, the Corruptors are going to launch the attack. They get the Tempest. The Tempest is big because he knows he can stop the mining, so he knows he can kill Interceptors if they fight the Spores. So getting rid of the Tempest, I think, is the main thing to stop the Spores taking damage over time. As Reynor's now going to move to try and protect the Spire. Corruptors are going to be attacked in by the Interceptors, but now he gets a jump on the Carrier. Carrier 1 of 3 goes down, and this might just be it, Cat, as Reynor has won this most ridiculous game number 3.